An Arctic alliance is quietly redrawing the map of global energy and trade. While Washington enforces tariffs and bets on costly US LNG, Ottawa is charting a new course across the Atlantic toward Norway, a powerhouse in natural gas, Arctic shipping, and offshore infrastructure. This isn't just about pipelines. It's a calculated move in the escalating race for Arctic influence. The real question? Can the U.S. afford to let this partnership set the rules? Welcome to Geo Capitalist, where we decode global wealth, one power shift at a time. If you want to understand the real forces shaping energy, trade, and finance, make sure to subscribe now, because the biggest moves in tomorrow's economy are already in motion today. For decades, the U.S. viewed Canada as its reliable northern partner, aligned almost entirely with American energy and trade priorities. But as Arctic ice recedes, new routes are linking Europe directly to Asia, bypassing traditional U.S.-controlled choke points. Suddenly, Canada's northern waters aren't just a frozen frontier. They're a potential economic lifeline. And here, Norway becomes the natural partner. Norway brings world-class Arctic expertise, from offshore gas extraction in the Barents Sea to advanced icebreaker technology. Canada, meanwhile, controls critical gateways like the Northwest Passage. Together, they hold the keys to shaping not just regional trade, but global supply flows worth hundreds of billions by 2050. The partnership is about more than resources. It's about influence. By working with Norway, Canada positions itself as a bridge between North America and Europe in the Arctic. For Washington, that means a growing part of global trade could move forward without its direct oversight. This is the story of why Canada is teaming up with Norway, and why the U.S. can't stop it. When most people think of Arctic cooperation, they imagine defense strategies or icy borders. But the real driver here is energy. Canada and Norway are quietly aligning their natural gas strategies in a way that could reshape global markets. Both countries are sitting on vast reserves of gas and LNG potential. Canada has been trying to accelerate its liquefied natural gas export capacity through projects on the East Coast, while Norway remains Europe's largest gas supplier after Russia's decline. Now, the Arctic is becoming the meeting point. Here's why this matters. Europe is desperate for stable energy partners. Norway already provides over 25% of Europe's gas, but it cannot expand indefinitely without new logistical links. Canada, with its Atlantic coastline, is positioning itself as an additional pillar of supply, not a rival to Norway, but a complement. Together, they're sketching out an energy corridor that runs through Arctic shipping lanes, linking LNG terminals, pipelines, and deep-water ports. The economics are powerful. Europe gets redundancy in its supply lines, Canada gains secure long-term buyers, and Norway extends its influence beyond Scandinavia. But geopolitically, it's even bigger. By coordinating LNG infrastructure, Ottawa and Oslo reduce Europe's reliance on US LNG exports, quietly diluting Washington's leverage. What looks like a simple energy partnership is, in reality, a strategic redesign of who controls the flow of Arctic energy. And the timing is critical. As global gas demand plateaus in Asia and shifts in Europe, Canada and Norway see an opportunity to lock in their place as the twin anchors of Atlantic energy security. Beyond energy, the Arctic is opening up as one of the most strategically valuable shipping regions on Earth. Melting ice and improved navigation technology mean shorter, cheaper routes are becoming viable. For Canada, this means its Northwest Passage could finally become a global trade lane. For Norway, the Northern Sea Route has already become central to Europe-Asia transport. When combined, these routes create a North Atlantic Arctic shipping network that reduces transit times between Europe, North America, and Asia by nearly 40%. That efficiency translates directly into cost savings for shipping companies, while also providing new leverage over global supply chains. Canada and Norway are aligning policies to coordinate port development, icebreaker support, and digital navigation systems, effectively building the Arctic's version of the Panama Canal, only spread across thousands of miles of ocean. Here's the geopolitical angle. Whoever controls Arctic shipping controls a significant share of global trade flows. For Washington, this poses a challenge. The U.S. Navy cannot project dominance in Arctic waters the same way it does in the Pacific or Atlantic. That creates a vacuum. One Canada and Norway are filling together. By coordinating shipping corridors, they are setting standards, deciding tariffs, and influencing the movement of goods in ways the U.S. can't easily dictate. This is why Arctic shipping isn't just about boats and ice. It's about economic power, regulatory influence, and strategic positioning in a region that's quickly becoming the world's next trade frontier. While energy and shipping capture headlines, the backbone of Canada-Norway cooperation is security, not in the traditional sense of armies and bases, but in terms of coordination, surveillance, and infrastructure safety. The Arctic is fragile. Pipelines, shipping lanes, and digital cables all pass through some of the harshest environments on Earth. One accident can ripple across continents. Norway has decades of expertise in Arctic monitoring, from satellite systems to specialized Coast Guard units trained for polar waters. Canada, by contrast, has vast territory but limited Arctic infrastructure. By combining forces, they create a stronger safety net, shared satellite surveillance, joint Coast Guard operations, and synchronized emergency protocols. This cooperation is critical for energy and shipping, but it also has an economic edge. Insurance companies view Arctic ventures as high risk. By demonstrating strong binational security frameworks, Ottawa and Oslo make it cheaper and more attractive for investors to finance LNG terminals, port expansions, and undersea cable projects. The U.S., meanwhile, plays a limited role in Arctic security. Its focus has traditionally been elsewhere. This leaves Canada and Norway in the unusual position of setting the operational standards for safety across a region Washington cannot fully police. The result is subtle but powerful. North Atlantic security is no longer dictated solely by U.S. influence. Instead, it is being quietly redefined through pragmatic Canada-Norway cooperation that puts their shared interests first. Europe has learned a harsh lesson in recent years. Energy dependency is a liability. When Russian gas became unreliable, Norway stepped in to fill the gap, boosting its exports to record levels. But even Norway knows it cannot carry Europe's entire burden. This is where Canada comes in. Canadian LNG projects, like those planned in Nova Scotia, are designed with Europe in mind. By integrating with Norway's existing distribution networks, Canada can channel gas directly into Europe's energy system without duplicating infrastructure. It's a plug-and-play solution that ensures Europe has two Arctic democracies securing its energy future. This creates resilience. If one supply line faces disruption, whether due to storms, technical failures, or political blockages, the other steps in. Europe's leaders see this as a lifeline, especially as demand for natural gas remains high during the transition to renewables. The U.S. still exports significant LNG to Europe, but it's expensive and vulnerable to domestic policy shifts. By leaning on Canada and Norway, Europe gains predictable partners who don't tie energy deliveries to political conditions. That predictability is now worth more than just price. This isn't only about energy security. It's about Europe's ability to stand independently from both Washington and Moscow. And that's exactly why the Canada-Norway partnership is so geopolitically significant. It gives Europe breathing room in a world where dependency can make or break economies. For decades, Washington assumed it would remain the center of North Atlantic energy and security. But Canada's alignment with Norway changes that calculation. The U.S. is watching two close allies build systems, from LNG pipelines to Arctic ports, where American influence is secondary. The U.S. exports LNG to Europe, yes, but those shipments depend on Gulf Coast terminals and long shipping routes vulnerable to bottlenecks. In contrast, Canada and Norway are offering Europe proximity, efficiency, and stability. That's difficult to compete with. Politically, this is delicate. Washington wants to maintain leadership in NATO and global energy diplomacy. Yet, in practice, Canada and Norway are designing structures that bypass U.S. control without openly challenging it. It's not confrontation, it's quiet circumvention, and that may be even more powerful. The optics matter too. For decades, Canada was seen as Washington's junior partner. But by working with Norway as an equal, Ottawa is signaling independence in a way few expected. That shift is subtle but significant. It shows that U.S. allies are capable of building parallel frameworks outside of America's orbit. The U.S. can still influence Arctic policy, but its leverage is shrinking. Canada and Norway are writing the rules of a new North Atlantic order, and Washington, for once, is on the outside looking in. What starts in the Arctic doesn't stay in the Arctic. Canada and Norway's partnership is already shaping decisions in Asia, Africa, and South America. LNG buyers in Japan and South Korea are re-evaluating contracts, considering whether North Atlantic gas might offer more stability than Middle Eastern alternatives. African nations, too, are studying Arctic port models as templates for their own coastal infrastructure. China, for its part, is paying close attention. Beijing has long eyed Arctic shipping routes as a way to shorten trade times, but it now sees that Canada and Norway are moving first to define those corridors. That means Chinese companies will operate under frameworks set not by Washington, but by Ottawa and Oslo. Meanwhile, global investors view this cooperation as a signal. The Arctic is no longer experimental, it's investable. Billions are flowing into LNG projects, undersea cables, and satellite networks that support Arctic trade. The ripple effects extend even into climate diplomacy as both Canada and Norway position themselves as leaders in balancing Arctic development with environmental protection. The U.S. isn't excluded from these ripple effects, but it's not leading them. That distinction matters. In a world where influence is measured less by hard control and more by agenda setting, Canada and Norway are proving that even mid-sized powers can tilt the scales. Their cooperation is becoming a model for how smaller nations can quietly shape global systems in ways that rival superpowers cannot. At first glance, the Canada-Norway partnership might look like a niche Arctic story, but step back, and you see something much larger. This is about how power is shifting in a multipolar world. Instead of one dominant player dictating the rules, we're watching coalitions of like-minded nations build new frameworks together. Canada brings geography, resources, and Atlantic access. Norway brings energy infrastructure, Arctic expertise, and European influence. Together, they're proving that cooperation between two focused partners can achieve what even superpowers struggle to manage: resilient supply chains, credible security, and balanced diplomacy. For Europe, this is a lifeline. For Asia, it's a signal of future trade. For the US, it's a wake-up call that leadership is no longer guaranteed. And for the Arctic, it's the beginning of a new era, one where strategic cooperation defines the rules of the world's last frontier. The bigger picture is clear. Canada and Norway are not just building pipelines or shipping lanes. They're building a blueprint for how mid-sized democracies can navigate an era of fractured alliances and economic uncertainty. And in doing so, they are showing the world that the future of power doesn't always flow from Washington, Moscow, or Beijing. Sometimes it flows from Ottawa and Oslo. If you found this breakdown valuable, watch our next video. It connects directly to what's unfolding. And don't forget to subscribe. Your support helps us decode these global shifts without compromise. Let us know in the comments, is Canada simply diversifying? Or is this the start of a permanent Arctic realignment? Either way, the world is watching. This was Why Canada is Teaming Up with Norway and the US Can't Stop It. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.